And at that point in my life, there's no way I could have been in the room with the cocaine, with the people, with the alcohol, and made it out alive. There's no way. So the assessment is right. So the question is about this person. They have friends that are partaking in things they don't want to be a part of anymore. It's gonna boil down to the assessment that they have of this of their life. If they can be in those scenarios with those people and value their connection, their friendship, their jokes, their love, their listening, their stories, their lives. If you can do that while they're partaking in whatever they are, then okay, you can do that. I would say that that's valuable to maintain those relationships. Now, if you cannot do that, like you're in that scenario and all they're telling you about their family and they're this, and they have a beer in their hand, and all you're thinking is like, I want to take that damn beer and drink it. It's like, then there's no value there. You're struggling and it's not a good scenario. So get the hell out of there.
What's up, y'all? So, look, let me just go ahead and keep it short with you. Did you know that as of 2024, the United States has a literacy problem? 21% of adults cannot read, and 54% of them have been recorded, and it has been documented read below a 6th grade level. That is a catastrophe. But that's where I step in. Now, I'm not going to teach the grown folks how to read and write. However, PSA, the Ghostwriting Solution, has now a new package. It's called the Literacy Liftoff, and it caters to 9th through 12th graders who struggle with reading, writing, and comprehension. This new tutoring service will offer vocabulary skills, teaching students how to literally write from the bottom, literally teaching them how to do an introduction paragraph, how to do a hook, how to do a conclusion, how to add a little razzle dazzle, and how to add their own personal touch to it. Okay. Now, you know what you're saying. Well, that's what they go to school for? Absolutely. But as an ex-teacher, the teachers just don't have time. So this program has 3 different packages from 3 different sets of hours that you can take. So if you're an AP, a principal, the student who needs help, the parent of the student, or you just know somebody who needs the help. If you're in the Houston area, you can get in-person tutorials. But if you are not in Houston, there are also virtual options offered as well. So hit me up at my email, theprodigyperspective@gmail.com and or psathepodcast.com, and we will hook you up. All right. What is up, everybody? We are back for another episode. You know, I noticed with these episodes, I always started, I don't know how I started doing that, but I'll be like, we got another super hot fire episode, and I say that every time. And I literally, when I play back all the episodes, I literally said it at the beginning of all of them. And I don't know how that started. I'm gonna take it and run with it. I don't know how it started. You know, sometimes when people be saying, like, when they like get up and then they'll be like, oh, that's something that they would say normally is something they become known for. So maybe I'll become known for that. And then I got to get shirts made that says super high fire. I got that from a show. Yeah. But I know what show it is, but I don't feel like explaining it because it's kind of hard to explain because you're not going to get it. So it's no point. But it's kind of like a parody. What yeah, something like that. I don't know. Okay. So today's episode is going to be a great one. In this, I don't want to say different because we're all about pushing the boundaries here, and it's again always going to have critical thinking, but it's just one where I think that it might be seem a little odd in a sense, maybe just based on the meme and kind of some of the things I got going on. So let's get into this week's meme so then you can kind of see it. Okay, so the meme this week says being weak can be kind of cool sometimes. The inspirations come from 2 places. So the first one comes from the phrase that I don't want to say I love, but I do like, and I think it's interesting. And I'm going to get more in depth with this phrase as the episode goes along. Those who don't know the history are doomed to repeat it, because when we think of that, we instantly think of just, oh, I don't know about the wars that took place in China. No, history is also your personal history as well. It's also your friendship history, your relationship history, your financial history. So people don't realize that, like, if you don't learn from history, you know what I'm saying? Personally, you're going to be doomed to repeat it. Also, 2 Corinthians 12:9-10, which says, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast on all that more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weakness and insults and hardships and persecution and difficulty. For when I am weak, then I am strong." And I really like that, especially for this episode, because again, we talking about being defeat, hitting rock bottom, and knowing that in some places, that's the best place to be. All right. So let's get into this week's happy hour, because I got a quick rant today. Okay. So for the happy hour today, two things I want to talk about. Usually, I got a whole theatrical production about some topics, but today we just gonna rant like I used to do back in the day. So the first thing I'm gonna talk about is, so I was out of town for 10 days. 10 days, okay. My apartment complex all of a sudden magically decides that they want to tow abandoned cars. So now they're going around putting notes on people's cars, talking about, oh, we want to, get rid of all these abandoned cars. So obviously I have a car, and so I went to Kansas City, then I went to St. Louis, and then I went to Austin for South by Southwest. So I was gone, like I said, I was gone for 10 days. Get back here. I saw an email, got an email from my apartment complex, and it basically was saying, like, we towing the car. So I'm like, I had a feeling I was gonna have one. So I get back, as I'm getting out the Uber or whatever, and I'm about to walk up to my house, and I look at my car, I see a big orange sticker. And the orange sticker says, "Warning, your car will be towed on the 22nd. Gave me the warning on the 15th. It says you have 24 hours to respond to this." Then they said another message that said on the 22nd your car will be towed. So I'm thinking, okay, how is my car getting towed and I'm here all the time? So I tried to scratch the sticker off, and then I went to the apartment complex to ask them about it. So apparently, after living here for 7 years, my car was never registered, which is wild, because how was it never registered but just a sticker on there? Don't know how that works. Then the guy, I guess he tried to be funny. He was like, "Yeah, well, moving forward, just make sure your car doesn't look abandoned." Ha ha ha. I'm like, that's not funny. So he ended up sending an email to the people to fix it. But the thing was, my car is very dirty. It is very dirty. I ain't gonna lie. And I guess because it had been sitting there for all those days. But I mean, why now? Why now y'all want to get rid of all the abandoned cars? What made you say, and obviously my car's not abandoned, but it just was really dirty and it hadn't moved in 10 days. So I guess they was like, oh, this must be abandoned. But why now? Because it's literally been cars sitting there for years, like years. It's people who probably was like, I have an abandoned car. Let me come drop it off over at this apartment complex, because I learned 6 months late. Apparently, for over a year and a half, we didn't even have assigned parking spots. We used to, but then they stopped because they were doing construction. So now people just parking in there all kind of where. So of course, if you got a car that's stolo or whatever, they just probably hide it over here because it's like it's not gonna get towed. So yeah, that blew me real bad. And yeah, so I ain't like that. I don't have nothing to do with what we talking about today, but I just had to vent about that because I want to see if this happened to somebody before. Second topic I want to talk about that actually kind of correlates with what's happening today. So you ever see those situations where we live in a different world? Back in the day, when people would lose a fight, like a physical fight, it was just the end of it. This day and age, people don't lose when they lose the fight. They want to keep fighting, and it's like, okay, you lost. Just hang it up, right? But no, not this generation. And then unfortunately, sometimes that resorts to even, further violence. As far as somebody may get shot, or then they may come back again and bring people to try to get you because they couldn't get you the first time. Or like I said, they just keep trying to fight you. And it's unfortunate because it's clearly demonic. Because it's just like, what in you just won't just accept the fact? And it's also a pride thing, because what in you won't just accept the fact it's over? You know what I mean? I don't know why these people, especially when half of y'all get into a fight, sometimes it's verbal. Sometimes we look at like the political aspect, like the debates and things like that. And then, of course, and just actual real life fights. But it's just that's a pride thing that you just cannot accept the fact that it's over. You know what I mean? And I want somebody to hear that today. Just unless you're fighting for like your kids or fighting for a right, something to that extent, then okay. But just to be fighting, just to fight, it is kind of like, what are we doing? And even with some of these arguments and debates, and then you know what I can't stand? People at this age who can't lose a debate. Like, it's okay. It's okay to just be wrong and just be like, all right, and just hang it up. Some people just can't admit to being wrong. And it's just like, you're too old for that. That's my opinion. That's just me. So that's my rant for this morning. Now we got to get into some good stuff today. So I have a great guest who has an amazing story. So I'm going to introduce him now, and I can't wait for y'all to hear it. What is going on?
Hey, how are you?
I am good. How are
Is
you?
it morning? Is it morning where you're at? It's morning where I'm at.
It
So
is. It is 7:44.
that's a good morning then. Yeah.
So obviously I can see your name and I know your name. Before my audio people, can you tell the people what's your name, where you're from, and then tell the people what you do?
Yeah, man. I'm Ryan Penley. I'm down here I'm in Florida, right? And I got this. Forgive me. I got a bunch of things flowing in my mind about the whole fight thing and all of that. So, but yeah, I developed a book. I published a book on it's on addiction recovery and sobriety, but also like rock bottom. It's a memoir slash strategy. So that each part of the book has got stories that kind of express like my objective stronghold at the bottom, at the rock bottom, and then I got some ways, some tactics, some strategies to try to cure that, right? So I believe wholeheartedly, like if you're a person in this world and you've gotten some success with a difficult problem, this problem being substance abuse and addiction and stuff, I think it's our responsibility to try to reach out and help somebody that might be suffering from those similar circumstances, so and maybe it will help, it won't help everyone, but if it can help some, then that's my goal.
Now, you said a lot of was going through your mind with the whole fight thing. So let's talk about it. I want to hear what you
Yeah.
think. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, you kind of touched on like some fights are kind of have like a higher level, and then some fights are just it's just a tussle, right? And I value like a just a good tussle. It's like, all right, man, I'm pissed, you're pissed. We could just get this whole damn thing over in like a minute and a half, and then whatever. I'll buy you a sandwich, and then usually what I've found, like, you could leave it there. Now you're touching
Yeah.
on some people like not leaving it there, not letting it go, and then so we can bridge that into like larger scale fights, like in life and struggles. And I know like my larger fights, and if you want to, include the sobriety, addiction, and things of that nature, then yeah, it was the lesson, like the larger the meta goal or meta lesson to learn was humility, right? And I think that you know, people that hold on too tight, they lack the lesson of humility or maybe even surrender to God. And when you miss that, if the intention of a higher being was for you to gain that lesson and you miss it, you hold on too tight, you usually just dig in a hole, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking a little bit about what you were referencing there, and like getting into a
Right.
fight. Yeah,
But that's the thing too, because like I said, older generations, I'm really comparing, and it's kind of my generation too, but really it's more of the newer generation with that, because as being an ex-teacher and was a teacher for 6.5 years, just listening to just their thought processes on that compared to like when I was a lot younger and the generations before me, it was so different. It was so, it was a time where I know, especially when my parents were younger, when they were like, you had fights, it wasn't let me go get a gun. It was just let us fight, get this out the way, and it's over with. Now it's like,
yeah,
people bringing guns, they bringing knives. It's like they just can't accept that it's just a different mindset. And even with, and like you said, a little tussle, get it out the way, it's a minute and a half. And that's how most, and in most cases though, especially with men, it's kind of like, let's just do this, get out. Women is that's a different story. But we're not talking about them. But with men, it's kind of like, okay, boom, it's over with, And I
yeah,
feel like in some cases too, in life, from even personal experiences, after the fight is over, it's like, okay, I'm good now. Like we ain't
yeah.
even got like it's over.
And
So
you can even see that like on a professional level. Like you see like two guys before like a big fight. I'm talking like UFC, boxing.
right,
You know, they hate each other. They're saying all kinds of these horrible things. And then once you get that energy out and you've gone like a couple rounds, it's like, man, it's all exercised. You got all that,
right.
you got all those demons out, you got all that stuff kind of out. The anger is dissipated, and now you're tired, and you're just like, all right, man, you know, I'll give you a hug, and then see you around, you know.
Right. Right. No, for sure. So this episode, obviously, like I said, centers around rock bottom, defeat, fighting, weakness, all that kind of good stuff. So can you share a pivotal moment from your journey to sobriety where you had to accept defeat, and how did that acceptance become a turning point for you?
Yeah, there was I think some of like the longer moments, you know, I kind of worked myself down like socially to where I was in a program and I was doing these like day labor jobs, and man, it was tough. Like every morning it was like, here's a shovel, go dig a hole. Here's a reflective vest. You staring down the barrel of like 8 hours in the Florida sun, like, on the side of the road or whatever it was. And it changed every day. And so, and I was in a program where they kept all my money. So it was like, not only was like my pay rate like $8 an hour, but I didn't even get that, right. It went to the program. And so, it was a moment in my life where I was doing some tough work, and I know that there's people out there that have done that do well, and they're doing that kind of work, but it ain't easy, right? So there's a physical element, and it was like, damn, I'm in a position now where I'm working, I'm not keeping my money, I'm not able to keep my money, and so it was, man, it was low, it was a low period in my life. But again, like touching on what I had mentioned earlier, like looking back, right, I kind of see that the lesson was humility. I know
Hmm.
that. However, but when you're in the thick of it, you don't. It's hard to say, oh, that's why I'm out here.
Right.
You know, oh, humility, great. I'll just keep working like super hard. Like that's usually tough, a tough pill to swallow when you're in the middle of it. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay. Okay. So then my question is to you, even with that. So we talk about humility, and even like that's just this the God given what's the word I want for it? It's like the God given ability to accept or realize that that's what that lesson was, and unfortunately, we have to go through some of the worst times to experience some of the best of times, and then it's stuff that'll change your life forever in a good way. And as we get along with the episode, we'll hear more and more of that. So now I got a few words. Actually, I got quite a few words today. So I wanted you to tell me the first thing that comes to mind, and there's no right or wrong answer when you hear these words. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. When you hear the word maturity,
Experience. You want one word or you want more than that? You want explanation?
it's whatever you think, whatever come to your mind.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's your character on the other side of difficult circumstances and experiences. Um, you know, I think that could be linked to like say patience and forgiveness and things like that. And as a child, you can see as a teacher, you probably saw often, right? Like, the lack of maturity was the ability to forgive somebody that said something about them. You could see that in a class, and I remember it. Being in a class, like it was much more difficult for those people being young. Well, being young doesn't necessarily correlate to maturity, but it's like you go through different situations in life, and each time you're building a little bit of maturity, right? And maturity is like a more broad approach to it. They can be more specific to like what I mentioned, like patience and things like that. But some of those. So to sum it up, maturity is the character that you build on the opposite end of an experience, circumstance, or difficulty in your life.
Okay. When you hear the phrase rock bottom, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
No way to go but up.
When you hear the word history, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Mm. milestones, milestones in development.
And what about defeat?
Uh, that's a tricky one, and I'll tell you why. Because like I believe wholeheartedly is a deep belief that we're never truly defeated. If God wakes you up and you got breath in your body, you got another 86,400 seconds to spend on another day, and that's not defeat. So it's like Nelson Mandela. He says that he doesn't fail; he only wins or learns, right? So I I would like to say I don't like truly identify with defeat. I look at it as more just like a learning experience.
Okay. And then is this the last one? I promise. Weak.
Weak. Um, that's a place to get better. If
Okay.
you, I think if I look at a weakness, I'm like, all right, hey, I can work on that. That's what I think.
All right. So let's get into the definition. So maturity is a state, fact, or period of being mature. Rock bottom is at the lowest point possible level. Defeat, a win a victory over someone in a battle or contest, overcome or beat. History, the study of past events, particularly in human affairs. And then weak, lacking the power to perform physically demanding tasks, lacking physical strength and energy. All right, good. So now let's go. That's a nice segue to the next segment, which is what does this have to do with mental health? All right, so let me ask you a question. So, what are some of the mental health consequences for young men who refuse to accept defeat, and how can they navigate these challenges, in your opinion?
Well, uh, you know, for a young man, they're not willing to accept defeat. You could frame that in a positive. You could frame that in a positive uh, approach, in that they're not accepting defeat, meaning like they're not quitting, and that's a glorious thing. So, however, if they're not accepting defeat because they're not gaining the lesson, they're doomed to be defeated again. So it's always that person's choice to frame this defeat as an area to improve, or they can kick and scream and try the same method or approach that they had done before, and the likelihood that they will be defeated again is high, right? So again, defeat is like this opportunity. It's this opportunity you can identify the weakness, and if you're able to do so, then your chances, or the likelihood of your defeat again is much lower, right? And so it can be perceived as a gift, that defeat, and this also binds very well with maturity, because as I'd like to believe that as we get older and we are defeated and we do go through hard times and we do struggle, we're gaining lessons. I mean, that's ideally what happens. And not everybody does that. I understand. And hell, I don't do it. I mean, I have not done it, right? I've been quite stubborn many times in my life. And I
Right.
understand that, it's like, it's easier said than done. Am I right? So, but those defeats, given a person's approach, they can be gifts.
Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. I agree. I do. I like that what you said. It was like it can be like a gift, because sometimes we think, like I said, even with the verse earlier, we think weakness is always a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing, because one, if you can have the wisdom to know, like, okay, I can't do it all. That's why God sets things up for certain ways, so that you have to rely on Him, that you can't do it all in your own power. But in the same breath, it's a time to just be like, you know what? That should give you a little peace, in a sense, because it's kind of like, as hard as it may seem, because it's like, okay, cool. I know I can't do this all on my own. I know I can. Things have to happen a certain way. So, how does this align with mental health? So, I got four ways in which it does. So, the first one says resilience building. Accepting defeat and learning from it is a critical component of building resilience, which is vital for mental health, and most people tend to overlook. It says that the American Psychological Association highlights resilience as a key factor in protecting against mental health conditions and enhancing the ability to bounce back from adversity. So, by accepting defeat and viewing challenges as opportunities for growth, individuals develop a stronger psychological resilience that supports overall mental well-being. And the second one is enhancing emotional intelligence. A study published in the journal Personality and Social Psychology suggests that acknowledging and accepting one's vulnerabilities, which includes recognizing defeats, plays a significant role in improving emotional intelligence. And like that. So even with that, like, it just, the main thing here is awareness. And I think sometimes we overlook that because that's the first step. You know, most people, like I said earlier, with the whole denial thing, I think some people have to accept things for what they are first. And I think that people have a hard time doing that. So when we talk about acceptance, because you were, of course, you got on the road to sobriety and have been sober for a long time now. So we congratulate you for that. But
Thank you.
what was the point that made you say, I have a problem? Because most people don't admit it for a very long time.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And, you know, it wasn't, I mean, there's objectively somebody can look at my story and say, oh, well, that was it, right? Oh, okay, well,
Right.
no, that was it. But um, like I said, I'm pretty stubborn. And here I am. I'm preaching about the lessons and taking the lessons, but it maybe took me a really long time, by many people's opinions, right, and including my own, right.
Right.
So here I am. I'm visiting these moments that could have been pivotal. They could have been they could have been those moments that I snapped out of it, but it wasn't instantaneous. It wasn't one moment. Now, I did eventually reach a point in my life where I'm looking around and I was just undoubtedly at rock bottom. I was in a coma. I developed diabetes through excessive drug use and alcohol
Oh
abuse.
wow.
And so I went into a coma for like 7 days. I came out and people are like, oh, that's the moment, right? And I'm like, nah, I went another few years still trying to punish myself and my body and my mind. And then my mother sent me to jail. We got into an altercation and I was, she accused me of trying to cut her head off. She's not well, by the way. She's accused many
Mm.
people of cutting her head off, but that doesn't mean that it make it any better. Very it was a rough milestone in my life. And so people think, oh, well, then that's when you bounced right out of it, right? Like you snapped out of it and you turned it around. It wasn't that. It wasn't that easy or, like I said, instantaneous. And it was like I looked around and I said, "This is ridiculous. My life has crumbled. I have zero. I got zero going on. It seems like I got nowhere to go. And looking back now, I can say that was again a gift, but also in the middle of it, it didn't feel that way. So it wasn't a single moment. It was like a bunch of moments that I thought like, okay, I'm either gonna get to work and start improving or I'm gonna die. And so
Right.
and then I didn't die, so I got to work. So and I put those in order like that because it's the truth. Like I there was moments where I had given up hope and I didn't perish. So I was like, I got no choice but to get to work here. And then I did. And then that path that also was not instantaneous. And people that are in addiction recovery, they know that like relapse is a real thing. But I'd say, I really dug my heels in. It was March 31st, which is almost coming up here. And I dug my heels. That's my sober date. And then that's when, it was kind of the up and to the right on the graph, if you will. And so I didn't. I kind of kept that progress after that, but there wasn't a single moment that I could say, holds all of the change. It was a culmination of a lot of things, and then it was just tiny wins on top of tiny wins from that point.
Okay. Good. 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 And like I said, with the whole sobriety thing, I commend that because we've had a few people on here who've, been become sober and who have struggled with substance abuse and things of that nature. And it's crazy because all of y'all are totally different and everyone's story is different, but inherently y'all all are saying the same thing about, you knew it was time. I know one guy he was in a bar fight and that was his final situation. It was someone else who actually didn't even have a catastrophe. They actually just said they wanted just to see what it was like, to go to be sober. And then that's when they went on that kind of journey that way. And then it was just so many differences, but like I said, everybody's kind of the same. And even now, we talk about different generations. Like obviously, the newer generation has a lot of its issues, but what I will say is that this generation is doing that I think is good is they're trying to make being sober cool versus like older generations. It was just like, yo, you have a drink for dinner, you have a drink here. Even if you weren't drunk, it was just something to do. Now it's like people are bragging about living a sober life. And as someone who actually did a 30-day cleanse, and then since then I don't drink nowhere near like I used to.
Hmm.
I noticed the difference. It's such a big difference. It's kind of
Yeah.
takes you back in a sense, kind of to like what I know people in high school that were doing drugs and alcohol. I wasn't, and I used to look back just like I used to go out and just have a lot of sober fun, and it was just like it's kind of getting back to that, and it's not a bad thing. It's actually decent.
Yeah.
So
Well, hey,
definitely,
I commend you on that, man. That's pretty cool.
thank you so much. So, which leads to the next part of how this aligns with mental health. I had two more points. The third one is reducing shame and promoting recovery and addiction. Research from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration indicates that accepting one's struggles includes the acceptance of defeat and addiction and can reduce feelings of shame and isolation. This acceptance is crucial for initiating recovery and maintaining sobriety, which are essential for improving mental health and quality of life among struggling with substance use disorders. The next one is promoting growth mindset and mental flexibility. Carl Dweck's work on growth mindset, as discussed in her book, Carol Dweck, in her book Mindset: The New Psychology of Success, supports the idea of embracing challenges, setbacks, and defeats as part of the learning process and contributes to a growth mindset. This perspective encourages mental flexibility, perseverance, and positive attitude towards personal development and failure. This is linked with higher levels of mental health and fosters adaptive approach to life challenges and an even more resilient of self. So, with that, mental flexibility, you have a lot of that clearly. Anybody who can become sober after an addiction has some type of mental flexibility. So
Hmm.
now, in environments that might enable addiction, such as the nightlife scene in Vegas, how do you distinguish between accepting defeat by leaving and fighting to stay and overcome your demons?
Well, the particular arena that was Las Vegas, personally, well, I lived there 11 years, right? And Vegas is a tricky place to live. It's the belly. It's some people, friends of mine, they were there a couple hours, and I'm like, you got to get out of here. You're gonna be broken dead. You got to just get out, man. So, it's a unique place because everything's at your disposal. You can get anything you want all the time, and personally, I had reached a point where I chose to leave that arena. And now I also believe that like your problems will follow you, and my problems did follow me. However, that particular place, too it was too rich in the things that drug me down. So
Mm,
that was it was a conscious choice to change the environment. That won't always be the solution for change. And I
right.
think that when I'm listening to like what your explanation was, it's really it's change. And then I think almost everyone, it's really hard to argue that anybody would ever want to change for the worst. It just happens. So then you've got to make a conscious effort to change for the better. And so, the environment has a lot to do with it, but the overall, like, the meta goal is to change for the better. And sometimes the environment is got to change. Like, consider somebody that's in a position, their spouse abuses alcohol or drugs. Maybe their parents do all these things. Um, it's it's a situation that's unique to everyone, right? And actually, I was writing about this morning, um, it, because I'm getting my master's degree in addictions counseling. So I'm kind of touching on some of the things that you're mentioning, about mental health. And I started thinking about the different variables that, as a counselor or a therapist or a helping professional, when they approach somebody and you're trying to help them change for the better, you've got to know what's on the table for them. If they're in the trenches and they can't stop using or abusing drugs like every 5 or 6 hours, it might be so dire that they have to be constrained or kind of maybe even put into like what they call, a drunk tank or something like that, because they're not even close to a level of clarity to get better in any element of their life. Right now, consider somebody else. They've got a little bit of clarity. They've gained some traction in sobriety. They maybe have been sober 3 months, but they're still struggling with triggers and things of that nature. They're a completely different person than the first person I had mentioned. But there's no shortage of difficulty because of how many complex and robust variables there are in the equation. So what do? You start small. You start with what you can do. And then this is a tricky relationship with goal setting. I go over this in my book. You want something that you can attain, and then the amount of dopamine and energy and all kinds of momentum then you gain from these small wins, that's going to pay you dividends in the entire journey of not just recovery and substance abuse, but also changing no matter what your deal is, right? So I think that's above all else, people want to change. And I think above all else, people want to change for the better. And you start small, really.
All right, good stuff. So I like to hear. So let's go into the next segment, which is I challenge that. And in this segment, this is where we kind of challenge what we're talking about from the angle of just to say, especially with today, we talk about accepting defeat. So when we talk about that, we have to get into a question of like, are there times when we shouldn't accept defeat? And as in the happy hour segment, I kind of went into that a little bit earlier. But before we get into my research on that, I do have another question. So you are a writer. I did some research. I know that you have the ability to adapt your story's tone based on your audience. That's not a skill everybody can do. So, could you give an example of how shifting the emotional tone of your comeback story can impact this reception, especially among young men who may be struggling with similar issues?
I think this goes right back to what I was saying about the awareness of who you're speaking to. Now, say if I were to be talking to, say, an AA group, and I'm looking around and I see that there's people in there that are they've gained, maybe they're a few months sober, maybe they're a few years. You've got to really read, and depending on who we're talking about. So let's consider I'm talking to one person, right? Um, you've got to kind of feel out where they are, right? And then they call this motivational interviewing in counseling. So you're inquiring about them, and people want to tell you the cues, right? They want to tell you the cues. So if you're good at it, right, you can see when their interest is peaked, when their shame is peaked. And so when you're kind of, you're in that moment, and you're hyper in tune with whoever you're listening to, by paying attention to these moments, they're going to let you know what really bothers them. They're going to let you know what excites them. Now, they might be in such a deep depression, or they might be suffering so much so from whatever it is in their lives, that maybe you don't even get a chance to see what does excite them. So when you're in these scenarios and you're focusing on your tone, you want to mirror what they have going on. And then, if somebody, and for instance, like I was referencing what I was writing this morning, um, it's a gift to have somebody that's moved through their lives, and now they can really hone in on certain things, like maybe, their diet or exercise or all these other levels that get you to the next level, right? But the silver lining, the gift in all of that is identifying where they're at, right? And then that will dictate the tone that you're mentioning. And so you wouldn't come in too positive. If somebody's suffering deeply, they don't want to hear, they may not want to hear like, oh, one day it's going to get better, buddy. And then you pat them on the back. And then maybe I believe what I had said, but they don't believe it. And they're not any better than they were when they first spoke to me. Right. So, um, you know, again, getting in there and then mirroring what they have going on in their lives, especially with the tone, it can really dictate whether or not you're successful. And this is whether it's several conversations, coaching, treatment, or just one talk. It could just be one conversation. So personally, what I do is if I could just leave that person just feeling just a tiny bit better about their situation or themselves, then I consider that a win. Now, depending on how I'm working with that individual, like it might, be more work or more conversations, whatever it might be. But leave them a little bit better than they were in the first place. And you're not going to get that if you don't nail the tone, right?
And that's the thing, because sometimes with this podcast, and we talk about tone because I'm a writer also, but with this podcast, because it's tough love, it's very like in your face, but I just feel like in situations of top conversations that we talk about, I come from the angle of satire. So coming from that angle, it's able to get people to we kind of like laughing at our struggles, just to kind of laugh through it, but then it's still tough love at the same time, because it's just everybody, especially my target audience, doesn't respond to just everything so serious. And I just feel as though, and not everybody can blend humor and, seriousness, but I think it's just needed, because everything is not necessarily a joke, but everything shouldn't be so serious either. And I feel like it's just good to be able to do both.
Oh yeah, and I think not. I believe in tough love, but again, if you're speaking to somebody that's on the verge of, say, they're having suicidal thoughts, it's
Right.
like, man, you don't want to hit them with tough. They're not in a position to hear that, and you might actually
Right.
push them in maybe even a little bit deeper. So it's you know, again, it's like picking up and mirroring some of their tone. Now, if you think you're listening to them and they're full of excuses, and you kind of thinking, oh wait, hold on, man, I'm hearing some bullshit. I'm gonna hit him with the tough love. I'm gonna hit him with the tough love, and then that might be the moment that really works, right? That might be the moment
Right.
that it cracks through, and you're like, okay, yeah, I did it. Like that went well. Yeah.
No, definitely, definitely. Okay, so there are reasons, or three times when you shouldn't accept defeat. It says when persistence leads to success. A study highlighting the Harvard Business Review discusses the importance of grit and perseverance in achieving long-term goals. The research indicates that individuals who persist in the face of challenges rather than accepting defeat too early are more likely to achieve success. The second one says when accepting defeat harms mental health. The American Psychological Association has published findings on learned helplessness, a condition where individuals give up trying to influence their environment after repeated failures. This condition can lead to depression and anxiety. In many cases, when accepting defeat contributes to learned helplessness, continuing to seek solutions and strive for change can be crucial. The third one, I really like this one. It says when innovation and creativity are required. According to Forbes, innovation often requires challenging the status quo and refusing to accept defeat in the face of skepticism or initial failure. History is full of examples of inventors, scientists, and entrepreneurs who face repeated rejections. So, not accepting defeat can lead to breakthrough that can benefit society as a whole. So I really enjoyed that, especially as an innovator, because like I said, if I would have told people in 2018 I was going to start a podcast that combined mental health, critical thinking, and humor, everyone would have said, how that's not possible. And I wouldn't have believed it either, because technically, because somebody who, because I don't know a little bit of my backstory, I had many mental health and mental illness. Yeah, I can say mental illnesses because I was diagnosed. I had many mental illnesses back in the day. It started when I was around 9. Didn't get diagnosed till I was 22, but they had the same stuff all those years leading up to that point. And also just other many challenges with my mental health. And so wanted to start a platform that was encourage critical thinking and to think outside the box, all that good stuff. And my dad, who was a guidance counselor, told me that's mental health, because there are two definitions of mental health I really go by for this podcast. But the first one is mental health is the act of how the study of how we act, think, and feel. So when someone is mental health conscious, they are just in tune with why they act, think, and feel. They know, and they can be aware of. We talked about awareness and know, I might not have done that right, or oh, I could have did that better, or I did do that right. But just being aware of where your flaws are, and as I say all the time, as a man, I don't feel that men should make excuses. I feel as though, of course, you're going through something, as far as like you said earlier with the whole sobriety thing, and this is still new. This is still you're in a situation in that period where it's like I can't handle that tough talk right now because it's just that moment. But for the other people making excuses, you don't have an excuse. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. So this is a tricky one, and it can be kind of controversial because some people might challenge a person when they say, "Oh well." Whether or not you think that addiction is a disease or a personal choice. So, because I've heard, people are ignorant these days. So, from your experience, how do you navigate that complex conversation, especially when discussing accepting defeat and taking responsibility?
Well, so I had this. It's after I wrote my book, after I posted my book, I've been kind of developing this idea, and I've been kind of talking about it, and I believe in it. Right. So here it is. Um, Addicts change the world. Addicts have changed the world, and they've got this stigma and they've got this horrible cloud hanging over them. And that's usually when it's combined with substance abuse. It's combined with drugs, and I get it. I get that, and so there's the clout and the that's what's behind. That's the driver behind addiction as a disease. However, let's check this out. Was Mother Teresa addicted to peace? Right? Was Steve Jobs addicted to innovation? I believe, after I've thought about it, like these are addicts. People looked at Mother Teresa and they're probably like, "What are you doing? You're crazy. You shouldn't be doing that. You're putting yourself in danger." And she said, I gotta do it. I gotta do it." And she was addicted. She went out there and she did it anyway. Steve Jobs, he went through all kinds of troubles. We all know these are large scale, very like high level people. But I think that here's so if addiction is a disease and I got it, cool. I'm going to get addicted to very useful and valuable things, and then also things that aren't selfish. Because at the end of the day, when you're just chugging booze, you're not helping anybody by your own behavior, and it is a selfish act in itself. Like when you take pills, you take drugs, you're putting it into your body. It's very tough to share this kind of a experience or share things when it's like that. It's a selfish act, right? So if I'm an addict and I have that disease, all right. To me, the solution is I'm going to get addicted to writing. I'm going to get addicted to talking to people about their troubles or whatever it might be. And so yeah, if we want to call it disease, and I'm not trying to discredit people that approach it like that and treat it like that. That I respect that. Um, However, let's not try to cure it. Let's just try to aim it. Let's try to aim it at something. It's like, hey, if you're addicted, how about you try working out? And say somebody said, and then of course there's people that take it too far and they're addicted to working out, and who knows, they might be using steroids, whatever that might be, and that's not healthy. But if you could just take them and get them addicted to something that might help others, something that can be beneficial to their lives, then I think that's a pretty good direction to go. You know.
For sure, for sure. Now I'm gonna say my point on that to the next segment, which is the weekly sabbatical. And in this time, we kind of reflect just on a bunch of different things. So now you made a comment about, people wanting to, change the narrative. I guess we could use it that way. And as far as addicts change the world, right? So I like when you said that because I saw something recently where it says somebody when you one again we as I mentioned earlier we can't do things in our own strength. Now again with that God still requires us to do the work, but in the same breath He's gonna obviously do a lot of the heavy lifting. But even with that doing your own stuff, what I've learned recently is, and it's helping me. Not that I'm not necessarily an addict, but with trying to even just simply break a bad habit, I've learned you cannot just stop. Okay, I'm just stop. You have to replace that. And so that's what people don't realize that you have to do. And sometimes they replace one bad habit for another. Sometimes I know I had a friend who used to smoke cigarettes. He stopped smoking cigarettes, started vaping. You know, um,
Yeah, that
you
happens
know.
a lot.
So it can kind of, I think he's off of it completely now. But I know, that wasn't, I guess he kind of was like the lesser evil, but it really, I get it, but so it's just one of those things that keep that in mind to people that you have to find the replacement. And so you can't just stop cold turkey with something you've been addicted to and that has a strong hold on you.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So defeat can be a harsh teacher. We know this. So when you talked about, can you talk about any learned a moment of defeat that you now view as invaluable in your journey of sobriety and helping others, especially as far as with your book? So especially from that angle, man up, sober up.
So we're looking for a moment of defeat. Is that what you said? I'm so sorry.
As you was getting the book together, because we already talked about it just in life, but because I know as a writer, them times will come. So
Yeah. Yeah.
when getting the book together.
Well, I think there were several times during while I was writing that I felt like emotional, and which is a therapeutic process. I think everybody should try to or not try, write a book. I think everybody should write a book because it's such a glorious experience. And I think that when I was in the middle of writing it and I was going over the loss of connection that I suffered from as a result of my own behavior, I had pushed everybody away, and I came to a crossroads looking around, and I thought to myself, well, what do I do? Some people are like, well, you got to get new friends that don't do what you did, and you got to be around the right people that don't partake in that kind of behavior, and that's what you got to do. You got to get new friends. And I was like, well, I kind of want my old relationships. I kind of want my old friends back, and I know that they still do drugs. I know that they still drink. I know what they do, and so I said, I have got to get healthy enough to where I can get these people back. And I feel like I did. So the moment of defeat was realizing I was alone and
Mm-hmm.
realizing that people weren't picking up my phone calls anymore. People weren't answering me anymore. And that was a reality. I tried to ignore that, but the reality sunk in like, hey, people don't want to talk to me. And it's because I burned them. It was all my doing. But I fought, I fought hard, and it wasn't easy. I started telling people, of course, oh, I've been sober 3 months. They're like, okay. Well, hey, y'all, like, I've been sober 6 months. Oh, okay, yeah, right. So then I was like, well, I gotta show them. I gotta show them. So what I did is, I went to Las Vegas, and I stayed there for like a month, with what my best friend, and I just lived with him for a month to show him. And we went to places, we went to bars, we went to places where there was cocaine, there was booze, and so here I am, I am in the middle of it, and I made it, and so it's a little risky. I get it. I was a little risky for me to be putting myself in those scenarios, but I did it, and I managed to get back a lot of really, really good relationships, with people, and most of them still doing the same thing. I didn't come in as a savior either. Like, I just wanted their love and their connection back in my life, and so I managed to do that, in many areas, and it was that was an amazing moment, and I went over that moment, or at least I went over the whole process while I was writing, and that was outstanding. It was really, really valuable, in the book production process, and then also to realize that I had done that in my life.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Sometimes you can't always. Well, that's a great story. First of all, you can't always save people, and like you said, you wasn't going in as a savior. But it's also hard to save people closest to you sometimes too, because it's not even one. Sometimes they just don't want to be saved, but two, it's just from the standpoint of people are too familiar with you. So because of they know you, like I saw it was on Club Shay Shay, and I know Monique when she talked about being famous and getting to where she is today, and she said growing up, which I can relate to, her family's like, oh no, not her, not no, not him. He can't do that, not you, because they know you too well, and it's because of that it makes it hard for them to really get past, just like, they see you as little home, somebody from around the way. And then even in your case, it was like, oh, you was just doing this, 6 months ago, a year ago. You ain't changed. You the same person. Even if they don't tell you that, that's just how they view you. Even if they don't mean it from a they don't come from a place of malice with that thought process. It's just it is what it is, and
Yeah.
that's what we have to accept. Um, so you again, we know you was in Vegas. So dealing with these battles, and so my question to you would be to the target audience. We always talk about you know this group podcast, obviously, as I said too, is for people who are like that, which you were. Even with your friend group, that person who feels like an outlier, the person who feels like they're the ones who are doing what you're doing. Like you said, you was around people who was doing cocaine and alcohol stealing. You were at the point where you like, I don't want to do that anymore. But you were in that group where you were like the standout person, the person who wanted more.
Mm.
So, what would be your advice to somebody who's in a friend group who may haven't left that friend group, may need to, but haven't left yet, but they want more and they don't, and they aren't influenced easily by what everyone else is doing?
It's just they're not influenced easy by what others are doing,
Correct,
or they
right. They're not.
got it. Well, I again, it goes back to what you're able to handle. It's like a true assessment. Like early in my recovery, I couldn't be. I knew where liquor stores were geographically, and at the time I was taking the city bus, right? So I knew I could not be. If I was within a couple miles, I was going to go there. So like this also, so then I of course navigated around it until I could be close and I wasn't triggered, right? So the assessment at that time was exactly that. And at that point in my life, there's no way I could have been in the room with the cocaine, with the people, with the alcohol, and made it out alive. There's no way. So the assessment is right. So the question is about this person. They have friends that are partaking in things they don't want to be a part of anymore. It's gonna boil down to the assessment that they have of this of their life. If they can be in those scenarios with those people and value their connection, their friendship, their jokes, their love, their listening, their stories, their lives. If you can do that while they're partaking in whatever they are, then okay, you can do that. I would say that that's valuable to maintain those relationships. Now, if you cannot do that, like you're in that scenario and all they're telling you about their family and they're this and they have a beer in their hand and all you're thinking is like, I want to take that damn beer and drink it. It's like, then there's no value there. You're struggling and it's not a good scenario. So get the hell out of there. Don't put yourself there in that situation where you're just, you're white knuckling it, right? Like you're like, you're looking around, you're like, all right, I'm in this bar, I'm talking to all my good friends, but all I'm thinking about is like, how can I get a hold of a shot? How can I get a hold of a drink? And it's like, if that's the case, then yeah, don't, just stay away from it. You're gonna have to tell the people, and if they care about you, they'll get it. You say, hey, look, I can't be around you there. How about we go for a walk tomorrow? How about we hit the gym tomorrow afternoon or something? Something else, right? So, again, it's going to be contingent on their assessment of what works for them at that point. Now it can change. It changed for me. In time, I was able to be in those scenarios and I could be all right and value their friendship, value their relationship, and they could be doing whatever the hell they want to do. They're doing cocaine, they're smoking weed, it's all good. I'm just there not doing those things, but I'm still a friend.
All right, good stuff. Good stuff. Like I said, and it's just again, I didn't plan on that, but this episode definitely deals a lot with awareness. And again, you might have to leave those friends alone temporarily, and in some cases, permanently. God might have closed that door. You might just have to be thankful for the memories and just have to go about your business because certain things, and we think it's just addiction, but it's so many things. If it's certain lifestyles you don't want to live anymore, if it's certain habits and things you don't want to live anymore, it's so many ways and so many it's so much that can go along with that, but just keep in mind that it's just not just one thing. It just caters to everything. And like I said, as the person who feels like the outlier or outcast in their friend group, who, like I said, some of us are waking up at 5 o'clock and we're going on intermittent fasting and praying from 5 to 5, and our friends are eating everything in sight, or you're trying to really get your diet together and your friends always want to go get fried chicken every day or want to go get something that you ain't supposed to be eating, and all that. So a lot of people can't, in that point, go to the places like I said, we think it's just such, in depth. Sometimes it's just you just want to get your body together. Like I can't hang with y'all right now because all y'all want to do is sit around and just eat bad and drink all day. And it's like, look, I'm trying to get this together, and I don't need no temptation. So you have to know what temptation you can handle, what you can't, and that's the main point of that. So now, last thing I'm gonna ask you before we get to the final segment: any strategies that you should suggest? So, say for instance, people want the book. Now, you can't. I don't want you giving away all your stuff, but what would be some strategies for someone to just accept defeat and just kind of be able to rise above it based on what you've written in your life?
Yeah. Again, I think if I was going to sum it up, um, start humbly, start small, right? If you shoot too big at first, like when I was first getting sober, I had to do 15 minutes was the goal. And I was like, I'm not going to pick up that damn bottle for 15 minutes. I'm not going to do it. And I failed. I failed like a lot. So like it's now it's such a small goal, but I had to start there. That was being realistic. That was the awareness. That was the assessment. That was where I was then. That was where I was at that moment. And so that's really how small I had to start. And you're not going to go around telling everybody, "Oh, hey, I didn't drink for 20 minutes, y'all." And it's like, "Oh, great." That's not something that you shout from the rooftops. I get it. But, you're never going to get to a year if you don't make it to 2 hours. And if you don't, so that it's imperative that you just really like dig in on the small wins, celebrate the small wins, and then they'll start to compound on you. They'll start to compound on you and grow. And then so like a win, a week later might be just a tiny bit better, but that's the name of the game. Now you're going to grow exponentially. But without the first couple of little achievements, you don't ever get off the ground. And so I think that if I was going to really give some good advice on where to start, right? There it is. Start small. Think about what you can do. Push yourself a little bit, but make sure that it can happen, right? Because it all flows together. And then once you start linking those small wins together, before you know it, man, you're crossing the finish line. You know what I mean?
Definitely, definitely. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So we had a lot to unpack in this episode, but like I said, a lot of gems dropped as always. And I appreciate you for everything that you've done. So we have to end off on a kind of high note. So we're going to play a game, and this game is called Game Time. And this game is called But Did You Die? I'm going to name several scenarios, and I want you to tell me whether or not when we talk about rock bottom and things that happen, so I'm gonna name several scenarios that are some are intense, some not so much, and I want you to tell me whether or not like this something like you can come back from this, maybe not. All right, so you ready?
Yeah.
All right, so the first scenario: somebody who's been on a weight loss journey and caved in and gained over 15 pounds.
And so, can you come back from that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. But what you have to be aware of is that like, you know, that those you spend one day on the couch, that will turn into three real fast. So that 15 can turn into 30. So if you don't stop right now and turn back the other way, that 15 will be 30, which will be 50. So you've got to change the tides. So yeah, you can come back, but it has to be immediately, right? You better start changing because that 15 is going to turn to 20, turn into 30. So if you kind of keep that on the high of your mind, like, okay, I got to go the other way, you know?
All right, somebody who has just lost their job and is living off of their savings.
Hmm. I, I hate to kind of like beat a dead dog here, but like, yeah, again, if you just started spending your savings, you better get to work, man. Like you better get. And that when I say get to work, obviously it's a lot easier said than done. Like, oh, I'll go out and get another job. But first and foremost, frame it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to start over. You start with that positive framework, and now you're not in despair, right? So you kind of shed a little bit of the shame of not having the job and getting fired, and then you start reframing it as like this is an opportunity to start over, right? And then also know that action is better than no action because the time is ticking, man. Savings will not be around if that's what you have for expenditures. You will suffer a zero balance in no time.
All right, last one. Somebody who has been struggling with alcohol addiction, but has come to their senses and realized that they are the problem and wants to make a change.
Oh wow, yeah, that's you're at a glorious place there. You're at a glorious place because man, yeah, I mean, essentially no progress is made until you make that exact realization that it's you that picks up that bottle. And like you had mentioned before about God, God will do the heavy lifting, but I'll tell you right now, he's not going to show up and smack the bottle from your hand. He's not going to do that. Yeah, he never did that for me. It started with me not picking it up, and that wasn't easy. But once I didn't pick it up, man, God, he did. He swooped me up, and like I said, the successes came quick, or they felt quick, but hard. You know, so they were difficult, but they do come if you start making that change. So you know, a person that in that situation where they've said, okay, wait a second, I could be better, and I could be better without the use of alcohol. If I don't do that, I'm going to be better, man. That's a glorious moment, and that's a huge milestone in that person's life for certain.
Good stuff, absolutely. And the plot twist of this game was there was always one answer, and you can come back from everything. And like I said, unless you're dead, you can come back from anything. So that was the goal, really. I want everybody to see, and that's kind of a lot of just a few scenarios that kind of I feel like plague this where we at in life.
Yeah.
All right, question and challenge to my audience for this week. What is your take on accepting defeat now? Because a lot of times I think a lot of us feel like I can't accept defeat, I can't accept failure. But as we saw, of course, we flipped it and so there are times where no, you shouldn't accept defeat. But for the most part, there are times you should accept defeat. Just know that this is like a soft and or hard reset. Sometimes either or is needed, and it's okay because it's sometimes and even with my weight loss journey, I've learned like sometimes when you had those weeks where you were losing 3 pounds, 2 pounds a week, and you look up, you gain 6 pounds, you're like, what went wrong? But then you really top all the loose ends, and then you go crazy the next week. So that's just something to keep in mind. So thank you again. Anything you want to plug before you go today?
Not necessarily. If you guys want to check me out at ryanpenley.org, I got my book on there. There's an author contact page. If you want to email me, feel free. And yeah, it's been a pleasure to be on here, man.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So that is all we got for today. PSA signing out. Always remember, keep your head up like your neck hurt. Remember who you are. Make your mind up. Don't let it make you. And remember, I love us for real.